She gets left on her wedding day and her billionaire boss whispers, "Pretend I'm the groom. He's not coming." That's all it took to silence the room. Diana stood at the altar in a dress meant for forever, while every whisper, every stare cut deeper than the last. But just when she thought she'd be left alone in front of everyone, someone unexpected stepped forward, not to change what happened, but to change what came next. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now let's get back to the story. "You don't need to wait anymore," the wedding planner whispered, her voice trembling. "He's not coming." The words sliced through the hush like broken glass. Diana didn't move, couldn't. The murmurs had already started, whispers behind delicate fingers, the sound of fabric shifting, guests standing in confusion. The organist fumbled a note before trailing into silence. Her heart wasn't beating. Not really. It was hanging, waiting for a miracle. But instead, all she saw was the empty aisle ahead. No groom, no footsteps, no smile. Just rows and rows of people watching her, frozen between pity and curiosity. One bridesmaid shifted awkwardly. Another quietly stepped back, as if worried the disaster might be contagious. Diana's father, sitting in the front row, covered his mouth with a trembling hand. Her sister Ella was already rising, about to rush to her, but Diana raised one gloved hand ever so slightly. "Don't." She felt her knees threaten betrayal. Her fingers found the soft pearl drop earrings swinging lightly with her breath. Her mother's earrings, the only thing that kept her from collapsing right there under the weight of humiliation. "These are for strength," her mother had said, "and for when you need to remember who you are." But right now, Diana didn't know who she was. She had been left at the altar, under lights, in front of 138 people. Still, her chin didn't drop. Her eyes didn't spill. Not yet. And then a rustle. Not from the back, not from where the groom should have entered, but from the far left, where the staff and last-minute guests lingered quietly by the wall. Someone began to walk. Tall, steady, unapologetically confident. Ethan Cole, the CEO. The man who built Cole Enterprises from the ground up, who had fired people with a single look, who never attended weddings, especially not ones of junior staff. She'd seen him around the office for years, distant, unreadable, yet something about him had always made her pause. And he was walking toward her, straight down the aisle, slow, deliberate. The crowd stirred. Some recognized him instantly. Others whispered, "Isn't that her boss? Why is he here?" He wasn't even invited, was he? He reached the front and stopped just short of her veil. His suit was immaculate, his tie untouched by the wind. His expression calm, unreadable. But there was something in his eyes, something that cracked ever so slightly. Then, in a voice only she could hear, he leaned in and whispered, "If you need someone to stand by you today, pretend I'm the groom." Her breath caught. Not from the offer, not yet, but from the fact that he meant it. He was serious. Not mocking, not pitying. He reached out a hand. Behind her, whispers turned into gasps. In front of her, the man she had only ever known as precise, cold, and brilliantly untouchable, was offering her a moment of rescue. "You don't have to," she murmured. "I know," he replied, "but I'm here." That was all. No grand speech, no dramatic declaration. Just steady eyes and a hand that did not shake. She took it. Gasps. A camera clicked. Someone cried out, "Is this a joke?" but was quickly hushed. Ethan stepped beside her, turned, and addressed the silent crowd. "There's been a change of plan," he said simply. "But the bride remains the bride, and she deserves every ounce of respect you came here to give her." His voice filled the space without effort. He didn't raise it. He didn't need to. Diana's fingers tightened around his. The wedding continued. No music, no celebration, but plates were served. Champagne flowed hesitantly. Guests didn't quite know what to say, so most said nothing. Diana and Ethan sat at the sweetheart table in near silence, the space between them electric with what hadn't been said. She touched her earrings again. He noticed. "They suit you." "They were my mother's." His gaze lingered. "I know." That surprised her. "You do." "I read the feature article you wrote last year for the charity gala," he said, cutting a clean piece of chicken. "The part about the earrings and the strength they represent." She blinked. She never imagined he'd read something she wrote. "You wrote it like someone who believes in things people can't see," he added quietly. A small smile fought its way through the storm inside her. "I was raised to believe in things like that." He nodded once. "So was I." There it was. The first breath. A shared meal. A quiet sentence with weight. But just as Diana began to feel the faintest sense of control returning, someone approached the table. It was Victoria Marine, socialite, friend of the groom, and longtime critic of Diana's small-town charm. Victoria had always wanted Ethan's attention and hated anyone who got it instead. "Sorry to interrupt," she said with a too-sweet smile, her eyes flicking between them. But I just thought you should know, someone posted a video of the whole thing. It's already gone viral. Over 100,000 views in the last hour. Diana's face drained of color. Victoria leaned in just enough to sting. They're calling you the stand-in bride. Cute, right? And just like that, the second humiliation hit. Ethan's jaw flexed. His chair shifted. Let it go, Diana said softly, eyes still locked on Victoria's. She just came to feel better about herself. Victoria laughed. Oh, darling, I already do. Then she walked away. Ethan didn't speak right away, but when he did, his words were slow. Deliberate. We need to control the narrative. And I don't do half measures. Diana turned to him. What does that mean? He looked directly at her. It means we're not pretending anymore. Diana's fingers gripped the edge of her plate like it was the only solid thing left in her life. The clinking of cutlery, half-hearted conversations, and awkward glances floated around her like fog. Across the sweetheart table, Ethan sat, as if this had been his seat all along. She leaned in just slightly. You really want to do this? Because if this is some kind of damage control, or... It's not, he interrupted, his tone quiet but firm. A waiter approached, clearly terrified of interrupting. Canopy? Brie, with truffle honey. Ethan picked one with slow precision. Diana shook her head. The waiter scurried away. Ethan turned his full attention back to her. Pity is silent. What I'm offering is loud. Diana swallowed. You're offering a scandal. I'm offering cover, he replied. There's a difference. She looked down, realizing her hands were still curled around the base of her champagne glass. Inside, the pale liquid shimmered, and something glinted beneath the surface. One of her pearl drop earrings had slipped loose and fallen into the glass without her noticing. She stared at it, suspended there like a drowned secret. When she looked up, she caught Ethan glancing at it too. He didn't comment, just acknowledged it with a brief look. It's already gone viral, she said finally. Victoria made sure I knew. She always did have impeccable timing, Ethan said flatly. Diana raised an eyebrow. You know her? Unfortunately. She was once married to my cousin. She was married? For about 12 minutes. A small laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Quick, startled, real. And maybe it was the first real sound she'd made all day. Ethan noticed, and though his expression didn't change, his shoulders eased almost imperceptibly. So, he said, pausing. Here's the choice. Diana sat straighter. We can walk out of here separately. You'll deal with the questions, the whispers, the pity, and I'll let my PR team handle the chaos. Or, she whispered. I'll take your hand, he said simply. We walk out together, publicly. I give them a version of the story they won't be able to chew apart. I make a statement to the press, and until this dies down, or until it doesn't, we play this as if it were planned. Her chest tightened. You mean pretend we're engaged? He didn't blink. I mean pretend you chose me. That landed harder than she expected. Why would you want that? She asked again, quieter now. Ethan's jaw shifted. Because I don't like bullies. Because this, he nodded at the room, was cruel. And because when a man runs away from a woman like you, someone has to make it clear that it's his loss. Silence stretched between them. Diana reached for the glass, gently fishing the earring out and holding it in her palm. The pearl was wet, shimmering in the light. Her mother's words came back, faint but fierce. These are for strength. And somehow, in this impossible moment, strength didn't feel like standing alone. It felt like having someone beside her. She took a slow breath. All right. Ethan looked at her. All right, we walk out together, she said, eyes locking with his. Let's give them a show. He stood first. The motion drew attention instantly. Chairs creaked. Forks paused midair. Victoria turned fully in her seat, mouth already curled in a smirk. But the smirk faltered when she saw Diana rising, graceful and composed, hand in Ethan's. Together they moved through the room, past awkward glances and half-hearted congratulations. Diana held her chin high, pearl earrings back in place, dress trailing behind her like a banner of defiance. At the double doors, flashbulbs began to pop. Ethan didn't release her hand. Then, right at the entrance, he leaned toward her, his voice velvet smooth. I'll say we've been together secretly, that you didn't want to outshine the groom, that he found out and left in jealousy. Diana stared at him, stunned. You're kidding. He gave the smallest hint of a smile. Tell me that's not exactly what they want to believe. And somehow, impossibly, she found herself smiling too. But just as they stepped into the cameras, a voice rang out from behind them, loud, breathless, and stunned. Diana, wait. She turned and froze. It was Ryan, the runaway groom. Back in his tuxedo, hair disheveled, eyes wide. I made a mistake, he said, stepping toward them. I'm here. I'm ready. The crowd gasped. Ethan didn't flinch. Diana's heart stopped. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we do love to know how far these stories travel, and please subscribe. Ryan looked disheveled, breathless, as if he'd run all the way back from whatever coward's hiding place he disappeared to. I made a mistake, he said again, louder this time, taking one step forward. I panicked, but I'm here. I'm ready. I still want to marry you. The room fell into the kind of silence that holds its breath and waits for a slap. Diana didn't blink. She didn't move. Her hand remained in Ethan's, steady, warm, and waiting. Ryan looked at Ethan like he just realized she wasn't standing alone. Who is he? What's he doing here? Ethan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Diana's throat burned. I waited for you, she said quietly, but her voice carried. The murmurs returned. I was 5 minutes away, Ryan said, stepping closer. I got overwhelmed. Everyone was watching. Your dad, the vows, the cameras, the expectations. I thought maybe I couldn't be who you needed me to be, but I can. I want to be. She looked at him. Really looked. The man who had once made her feel safe now looked like a stranger who wanted to be forgiven without earning it. You know what hurts more than being left, she said, voice steady. Being treated like an afterthought. Ryan paled. She took a step forward, not toward him, but beside Ethan, her body angled away now, protected by the man who had chosen to show up when it mattered. You don't get to run away from the hardest moment of my life, she said, and come back because you're scared of what people will say. Diana, I made a mistake. No, Ryan, she said. You made a choice. And so will I. She turned to Ethan. Still want to be my fake fiancé? She asked with quiet boldness. Ethan's eyes flicked to Ryan, then back to her. And for the first time, the faintest smile touched his lips. No, he said. I want to be whatever you need me to be. Gasps rippled. Someone dropped a glass. Ryan's expression hardened. This is ridiculous. You don't even know him. I've worked for him for 4 years, Diana said. And in one moment, he showed more character than you ever have. The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They landed like stones in still water. Diana reached down, lifted the train of her gown slightly, and walked back toward the doors, hand still in Ethan's, head held high. Outside, the press lights flashed. The air was cold, sharp with December wind, but her heart was warm. Not with revenge, not even with pride, but with the calm that comes from speaking truth out loud. Ethan guided her gently down the stairs. How do you feel? He asked. She exhaled. Like I'm finally not pretending. The car door opened. He held it for her. As she sat, she caught her reflection in the glass, veil slightly loose, cheeks flushed, but her eyes steady. And beside her, Ethan Cole, impeccable, unreadable, and oddly kind. As the car pulled away, her phone buzzed. A message from her father. You were brilliant today. Your mother would be proud. Come home when you're ready. We saved you cake. Tears pricked her eyes, but this time they didn't sting. They healed. She looked at Ethan, who sat quietly watching the road. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For not letting me fall alone. He turned to her. That's not something you'll ever have to worry about again. But before she could reply, her phone buzzed once more. Another message, this time from an unknown number. You're trending worldwide. You and the CEO. Congratulations. Or should I say condolences? Diana stared at it. She turned the screen toward Ethan. He read it once, then said, Time to make this official. The black car slid through the gates of Cole Tower, sleek and silent. Diana had never sat in the back of Ethan's personal town car before. She wasn't even sure most people in the company knew it existed. Is your inbox still exploding? Ethan asked from beside her. She gave a dry laugh. I stopped counting after the 27th, are you okay? Followed by a screenshot of my own face. He finally looked over. They'll lose interest. They always do. She hesitated. But I work in PR, Ethan. You and I both know they only move on if we give them something bigger to chase. His gaze didn't waver. Exactly. That one word sat in the air between them, heavy with implication. Diana tilted her head. So, when you said make it official, what exactly did you mean? He adjusted his cuff. I mean, we lean into it publicly. I make a statement. You move into the apartment above my office. We appear together a few times in controlled settings. Let the world write their fairy tale. She blinked. You want to pretend we're engaged? He nodded once. Temporarily. Until the headlines change. And then we end it with dignity. A quiet mutual statement. No one's reputation suffers. You don't get remembered as the girl left at the altar. And I don't get remembered as the man who watched it happen and did nothing. It made sense. Painfully strategic, smart, effective. But still, you've thought this through. I've had 27 minutes of silence, he replied, almost amused. That's a lifetime in my world. Diana exhaled slowly, her fingers brushing against the pearl earrings once more. I don't want to lie, she said quietly. You won't, Ethan replied. Not really. We're not pretending you loved me. We're pretending you didn't deserve what happened. Those words. She swallowed hard because he was right. The car pulled up in front of a brownstone with clean lines, ivy-covered windows, and a private elevator. Ethan stepped out first and offered his hand without hesitation. She took it. The penthouse apartment was everything she imagined: minimal, elegant. Not a single personal photo in sight. Warm light poured from sleek overhead panels, and a tall vase of fresh eucalyptus stood by the window, like a silent guest. Ethan gestured toward the open kitchen. You hungry? She blinked. You cook? No, he said. But I have a few emergency meals delivered weekly. Mostly for guests. She raised an eyebrow. You have guests? He didn't answer, just opened the fridge and pulled out a small container labeled vegetable stew, rosemary flatbread on side. Comfort food, he explained. My assistant's idea. You mean Sophie? He nodded. She likes me, Diana said softly. She likes anyone who survives working with me for more than a year. A laugh bubbled out. Genuine this time. She accepted the warmed bowl a few minutes later and sat across from him at the island counter. The flatbread was soft, slightly crisp at the edges, and somehow exactly what she didn't know she needed. He watched her carefully. You okay? I think so, she said, chewing thoughtfully. You? He hesitated. I'm not used to being this visible. She nodded. Neither am I. A knock at the door startled them both. Ethan stood cautiously, but when he opened it, a small elderly woman barreled in with a casserole dish. Diana Bennett, she exclaimed with delight. Oh, I saw it all. You poor dear. And him, she waved dismissively. Looked like someone who never learned to use a calendar. Ethan stood frozen. Mrs. Henderson, how did you? I live 3 floors down, dear. She patted his arm like he was 12. You think I don't know what goes on in this building? Diana blinked. How do you know my name? You're everywhere, darling. It's romantic. It's tragic. It's cinematic. And you? She pointed at Ethan. You make a much better fiancé anyway. Taller, steadier, less sweaty. Diana choked on her soup. Mrs. Henderson beamed. Now listen. You two keep your heads up. People love a good comeback. You're beautiful together. Just promise me one thing. They both nodded, caught in the warmth of her chaos. Don't waste time being afraid of what people think, she said. Fall in love for real or fake it beautifully. Either way, live it well. Then she turned, marched back out, and left the scent of cinnamon and roses behind her. Ethan blinked. That was magical. Diana finished smiling. They looked at each other, and for a moment, nothing felt fake. The ballroom glowed like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers, velvet drapes, silver-edged flutes of champagne carried on mirrored trays. Diana Bennett had walked into plenty of rooms before, but never one that judged this hard, this fast, and this quietly. Ethan, by contrast, looked carved out of certainty. In a sleek black tuxedo and crisp white shirt, he walked beside her with elegant indifference. His fingers rested lightly over hers as they approached the main floor, but he didn't miss the tension in her jaw. Nervous? He murmured. I don't know, she replied. I think my stomach left the car before I did. He leaned in slightly. There's no wrong way to be in this room. They just want to see if you flinch. Diana smiled. Then I won't. They passed couples in gowns that could pay off mortgages. Men with perfectly grayed temples and women whose smiles were sharp as diamonds. There she is. Is that the one from the... I heard he flew her to Paris after the scandal. The whispers brushed past her like cold air. She kept walking, chin lifted, eyes forward. Then from across the room, a woman approached. Tall, blonde, polished, probably late 40s. The kind of expensive that didn't need labels. Margaret Aldridge, board chair, philanthropist, and Ethan's most persistent critic. Well, Margaret said smoothly, looking Diana over. So this is the bride. Diana extended her hand. Diana Bennett. Nice to meet you. Margaret didn't shake it. Such courage, she said instead, sipping her champagne. To show up tonight after everything. Diana smiled politely. It takes less courage than you'd think. Just good heels. Margaret blinked. Ethan's mouth twitched at the edge. Just once. I do hope you're not here only to be seen, Margaret added, tone syrupy. This event raises funds for real causes. The last thing the foundation needs is another distraction. I'm here to support Ethan, Diana said. And to listen. To listen. Diana nodded. People in PR know when to speak and when to stay quiet long enough to understand a room. Margaret gave a tight smile. She drifted off, leaving behind the faint scent of roses and challenge. Ethan looked at Diana. You handle that. She thinks I'm the weak link. She wants you to be, he said. People like her, they scan for soft spots. They want something to poke. And then, just before the orchestra struck up again, a small voice spoke behind her. "Excuse me, are you the girl from the news?" She turned. An elderly woman in a floor-length velvet shawl stood holding a cane and a silver clutch shaped like a rose. Her eyes were kind and curious. Diana smiled. "That depends. Did the story make me look like a complete disaster?" The woman chuckled. "You looked human. That's rare in this room." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small Polaroid camera. "Could I have a photo with you?" she asked. "I like collecting moments that don't feel staged." Ethan's brow arched in surprise. Diana smiled. "Of course." She bent slightly, and the woman leaned in, clicking the photo. Flash. People watched confused, amused. "Thank you," the woman said. "My granddaughter's been having a hard time. I want her to see someone who stood up after falling down." Diana swallowed the lump in her throat. "I hope she knows she's not alone. She will now." The woman shuffled off. Ethan said nothing at first then. "Not bad for your first gala scandal." Diana smiled at him, warmer now. He reached for 2 flutes of champagne, handed her one. They clinked. "To what?" she asked. He met her eyes. "To being underestimated." She laughed the first real laugh of the night. And it felt good. But just as she took a sip, a new sound rose in the room. Gasps, murmurs, all turning toward one of the side entrances. Diana followed the crowd's gaze. There, stepping through the archway with camera crews just behind him, wearing a borrowed tux and an apologetic smirk, was Ryan, her ex-fiancé. Again. The moment Ryan walked into the ballroom, the temperature changed. He wasn't just a jilted ex-fiancé. He was the one who ran. And now he was walking straight toward her, cameras catching his every step. Ethan stiffened beside her. Subtle, but she felt it. "Diana," Ryan said when he reached them, breathless. "Can we talk?" She didn't answer right away. She placed her mother's pearl-beaded clutch on the nearest table. Carefully, deliberately. "I think everything that needed to be said," Diana replied, "was said the moment you walked away from the altar." Ryan's smile faltered. "I panicked. I've said that. But this isn't you. All these cameras and pretending." Ethan's voice was quiet but sharp. "You mean showing up?" Ryan's jaw clenched. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" Diana asked, her voice still calm, but cold now. "Because if it's for the drama, congratulations. You found it." She noticed Margaret watching from across the room. Others too, donors, board members, socialites. Ryan reached for her hand. She stepped back. "I'm not the same person I was last week," she said softly. Ryan looked genuinely stunned. "You think I don't know that?" "No, I don't think you know anything," she snapped. "Not about me. Not about what it took to stand there in front of everyone and not fall apart." A small cluster of journalists edged closer. And then one reporter stepped forward and asked, "Miss Bennett, is this a love triangle? Is your engagement to Mr. Cole still on?" Diana turned to them, heart pounding. Ethan spoke before she could. "There's no triangle," he said. "There's Diana, and there's the people who show up." Diana's chest tightened with gratitude. The reporter blinked, caught off guard. "So, the engagement is real?" There was a pause. Ethan looked at Diana, waiting, always giving her the choice. She felt the weight of it. Of all the eyes, the storylines, the questions, the assumptions. And then she said, clear, calm, unwavering, "Yes, I'm with Ethan. Not because I was abandoned, but because I finally stopped waiting for someone to rescue me." Gasps. A few claps. Even Margaret arched an eyebrow with a flicker of reluctant admiration. Ryan looked stricken, but Diana didn't flinch. She picked up her mother's clutch again and turned to walk away, but paused just beside Ryan. Quietly, she said, "You don't get to be the storm and ask me to dance in the rain." He didn't follow. Diana and Ethan stepped onto the balcony outside the ballroom. It was quieter there, colder. The hum of the city below glittering like 1,000 answers she hadn't known she needed. She leaned on the stone railing, clutch in hand. He watched her silently for a moment then. "You didn't have to say yes." "I know," she replied. "But I meant it." Ethan folded his arms. "Even if this ends soon?" She looked up at him. "You mean the story or the arrangement?" He didn't answer. She offered him a soft smile. "Maybe both." His eyes, always so controlled, flickered with something uncertain, unspoken. And then a woman in a red gown stumbled onto the balcony, breathless. "Oh," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Her eyes went wide. "Wait, are you Ethan Cole and Diana Bennett?" Diana blinked. "Yes. I work with Lifestyle Line magazine," the woman gushed. "Can I just say you two are incredible together? So much chemistry. It's like watching a modern Jane Austen story unfold in real time." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "We haven't heard that one yet." Diana smiled. "Usually it's Cinderella." The woman giggled. "Well, whatever it is, don't ruin it by denying it's real, okay?" Let us believe in something. She turned and disappeared, trailing perfume and a glittering clutch behind her. A beat of silence. Diana looked up at Ethan. Did we just get guilt-tripped by media into fake dating harder? His mouth quirked. Apparently. They laughed, and it surprised both of them how easy it felt. Back in the penthouse that night, Diana stood in the living room, still in her gala gown, heels discarded by the door. Ethan loosened his tie, undid the top button, exhaled. I thought you were going to punch him, Diana said, walking toward the couch. Believe me, Ethan replied, unbuttoning his jacket. So did I. She sat, clutching a throw pillow. You didn't, though. No. He paused. Because you didn't need me to. She looked at him. Really looked. His hair was slightly out of place. His collar uneven. For once, the great Ethan Cole looked real. Do you always do this? She asked softly. Do what? Save people when no one's looking? He leaned against the far wall, arms crossed loosely. No. Usually I just ignore the mess until someone writes me a check to fix it. She laughed, tired, but genuine. Then silence again. Outside, the city buzzed faintly. But in here, it was just the two of them. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. There's still more fallout coming. The foundation board will spin it. Margaret won't let it go quietly. We'll get questions, rumors. Diana nodded slowly. Let them come. That made him pause. You weren't like this before, he said. Before I got left at the altar? He nodded once. She tilted her head. Before, I needed to be liked. Now I need to be okay. He looked at her like he wasn't sure if he wanted to admire her or protect her. Maybe both. Diana reached up and gently removed her pearl drop earrings, placing them in the small white dish on the coffee table. Not as a rejection, but as a kind of exhale. I wore these thinking they'd keep me from breaking, she murmured. But I think I made it through tonight on my own. You didn't have to, he said, voice quieter now. She looked up. Their eyes met. Ethan walked closer. Tell me this is still temporary. Diana's eyes opened. She set her metaphorical fork down. You want it to be? I'm supposed to, he replied. Her heartbeat quickened. And are you? He leaned on the counter, arms braced. I planned this, or most of it. I wrote the steps, predicted the fallout, even expected the photo ops. But I didn't plan you. Silence. Not empty. Just full of things neither of them had said out loud until now. Diana stood, walked toward him slowly. Her voice didn't shake. I didn't expect you to hold my hand at the altar. Or walk me out. Or stay. He didn't move. She reached up, adjusting the crooked edge of his collar. This was supposed to be a lie, she whispered. But I've never felt more seen. His hand brushed hers, light, unintentional, but neither pulled away. I don't know what this is, she said. He nodded once. But it's not pretend. The air between them tightened. Not with fear, but with possibility. Diana blinked, gently pulling back. I need time. He didn't argue. Take it. But as she walked toward the guest room, heels in hand, he called after her. Diana. She turned. Ethan's voice was steady. Whatever this becomes, I'd never leave you at the altar. She didn't smile, but her eyes did. The wind moved softly through the trees that morning, carrying the faint scent of roses and earth. It was early, not yet noon, and the garden behind Diana's father's house was bathed in golden light. There were no flowers arranged in arches. No towering cakes, no camera crews or chandeliers or string quartets. Just folding chairs, wildflowers in mason jars, a white runner that curved gently beneath the trees. And at the end of it, Ethan Cole in a slate gray suit, standing quietly with his hands clasped in front of him. He wasn't looking at the guests. He was looking down the path, waiting. I'd never leave you at the altar. And here he was. This time the silence was not filled with whispers or tension. It was warm, expectant, sacred. A small group sat among the rows. Ella in a soft lavender dress, dabbing her eyes already. Her father beside her, holding a handkerchief like he was pretending not to cry. Sophie was there too, smiling like a woman who knew everything before anyone else did. And a few friends. That was all. Because Diana didn't need the world to see this. She just needed the people who stayed. Then the door opened. No dramatic music. No veil. Diana stepped into the garden in a simple white dress, elegant and soft. Her hair down, no tiara. Just her mother's pearl drop earrings glinting in the light. In her hands, she held a single stem of gardenia. And as she walked toward Ethan, her step slow and steady, everyone rose to their feet. But she didn't look at them. She looked at him. And when their eyes met, Ethan exhaled, barely noticeable, but unmistakably full of emotion. She reached the end of the path, and he stepped forward, holding out his hand. Not trembling, not rushed. Just steady. She took it. The officiant, a quiet older woman with a kind voice, welcomed everyone and said, "We're not here to witness perfection. We're here to witness choice. Two people choosing each other, fully." And finally, Diana's lips lifted slightly. She didn't need a speech. She didn't need spectacle. She just needed this. "I was left at the altar once," she said, turning to Ethan. "But that day gave me something I never expected. It stripped away every illusion and left only the truth. And in that silence you showed up. You didn't promise to fix me. You didn't ask me to hide. You just stood beside me. And now I want to stand beside you for everything. No pretending. No fear." Ethan's voice was low, clear, and real. "I spent years learning how to build walls, how to control what the world saw. But you saw right through that. You let me show up, not as the man people expect, but as the one who stays. And I will. For you. Every time." The vows weren't long, but no one forgot them. When the moment came, the officiant nodded. "Ethan Cole, do you choose Diana Bennett, not because the world is watching, but because your heart is?" He looked at her. "I do." "Diana Bennett, do you choose Ethan Cole? Not because he rescued you, but because you found your own strength and still want to share it?" She smiled, eyes bright. "I do." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands. No diamonds, no flash. Just the kind of ring that felt real on the hand of someone who'd fought for happiness. "By the quiet power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Ethan didn't wait for applause. He stepped forward and kissed her, slow, certain, reverent. Not a fairy tale kiss. A real one. One that said, "I'm here. I stayed. I'm not going anywhere." And this time, when she stood before a crowd of people at the end of the aisle, it wasn't as a woman abandoned. It was as a woman chosen. And more importantly, a woman who had chosen back. Afterward, the meal was served under a canopy of string lights. Homemade dishes, toasts full of gentle laughter. Ella told the story of when Diana tried to marry a teddy bear at age 6. Her father danced with her barefoot to a song her mother used to sing while cooking. And when the sun set, Diana sat on the porch steps, head against Ethan's shoulder, barefoot again, but no longer broken. Ethan kissed her temple. "You okay, Mrs. Cole?" She smiled. "Better than okay." He pulled her closer. "You know, I've been thinking about something." "About what?" "About that day at the altar," he said quietly. "When I walked down that aisle, I told myself I was doing it to help you, to save you from humiliation." Diana lifted her head to look at him. "And now I realize," he said, meeting her eyes, "that you saved me too. You reminded me what it means to be brave, to be real, to choose someone not because it makes sense on paper, but because they make you want to be better." Tears gathered in her eyes, but they were the good kind, the healing kind. "I spent so long trying to be perfect," Diana whispered, "trying to fit into what everyone expected. And in one terrible moment, all of that shattered. But you," her voice caught. "You didn't try to put the pieces back the way they were. You helped me build something new, something stronger." Ethan reached up and gently touched one of her pearl earrings. "Your mother was right, you know. These are for strength. But the strength was always yours. I just made sure you didn't have to use it alone." She leaned in and kissed him, soft, sweet, and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Ella came out onto the porch with 2 slices of cake on paper plates. "Mrs. Henderson from Ethan's building sent this," she said with a grin. "Along with a note that says, 'I told you so. Fall in love for real. Check. Live it well. Check. Now go eat some cake.'" They all laughed, and Diana felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace. Joy. Home. As the stars began to appear overhead, her father came out and sat beside them. "Your mother would have loved this," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Not the big wedding. Not the cameras or the drama. But this, watching you choose happiness on your own terms." Diana rested her head on his shoulder. "I think she knew I'd figure it out eventually. She always said you were stubborn," he chuckled. "Said it was your superpower." Ethan raised his glass of champagne. To stubborn women who refuse to stay down. Ella raised hers. To men who know when to show up. Diana's father raised his. To love that doesn't run away. And Diana raised hers last. To new beginnings that feel like coming home. They clinked glasses under the stars, surrounded by the people who mattered most, in a garden that smelled like roses and second chances. Later that night, as Diana and Ethan drove away toward their honeymoon, a quiet cabin by a lake, no press, no cameras, just them, she looked out the window at the city lights fading behind them. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Ryan had actually shown up that day?" she asked. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, "Every day I'm grateful he didn't." She turned to him, surprised. "Really? Really?" he said, glancing at her with a soft smile. Because I would have spent the rest of my life watching you from across boardrooms, wondering what it would be like to know you. To really know you. And I never would have had the courage to find out. And now, she whispered. Now, he said, reaching for her hand, I get to spend the rest of my life being grateful that the worst day of your life became the best day of mine. Diana felt her heart expand with so much love she thought it might burst. She looked down at her hand in his, at the simple gold band on her finger, at the pearl earrings that had carried her through the storm. And she realized something profound. Sometimes the story you think you're writing isn't the one you're meant to tell. Sometimes you have to let the old story fall apart completely, so a better one, a truer one, can begin. She had walked down an aisle toward a man who didn't show up. But she had walked away with a man who would never leave. And that made all the difference. 6 months later, a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop became Diana and Ethan's favorite Sunday morning spot. They sat across from each other, sipping coffee, reading the paper, existing in the kind of comfortable silence that only comes when two people truly know each other. Diana wore a cozy sweater, her hair in a loose bun, the pearl earrings catching the morning light. They were no longer a symbol of survival. They were a reminder of strength that had always been there, just waiting to be claimed. Ethan looked up from his newspaper. Did you see this? He turned the page toward her. There was a small article about Ryan. He'd gotten engaged to someone else. Quick engagement, big wedding planned. Diana looked at it, felt nothing but a distant wish for his happiness, and went back to her coffee. You okay? Ethan asked gently. She smiled. I'm perfect. And she meant it. Because sometimes the greatest love stories don't start with love at first sight. Sometimes they start with heartbreak, humiliation, and a stranger who decides to stay when everyone else walks away. Sometimes they start at an altar where the wrong person doesn't show up so the right person can. And sometimes, just sometimes, they end with a woman in a cafe, wearing her mother's earrings, holding hands with a man who taught her that being chosen is good, but choosing herself first is everything. Diana Bennett no. Diana Cole had finally found her happy ending. But more importantly, she had found her happy beginning. What would you do if the person who once intimidated you became the one who truly saw you? Tell me in the comments and rate this story from 0 to 10. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and don't miss the next emotional journey. Thanks for listening. See you in the next story.